regardless of whether or not the DA stays or the DA leaves, this is going to negatively affect John Steenhuisen. You cannot have a leader who time and time again threatens to leave a coalition and expect the voters to react well. Because you also have to remember that the DA's elective conference, which is going to happen in April of 2026, that is not decided by the public. That is decided internally by the DA. And internally in the DA, people are not happy with John Steenhuisen. And just last week, articles had come out where John said, he was hoping to run for a third term. He really wants to come back. That's not going to happen. John Steenhuisen, John Steenhuisen will not be the leader of the DA come April 2026. I can almost be 1,000% certain on that. It will be Jordan Lewis. I've said this time and time again.
Welcome back to the Born Free podcast. It's the last day of Youth Month, or the last week of Youth Month, not the last month. Hey, that would be a bit crazy. And today we're having conversations about what's happening in South Africa. It's going to be pretty laid back, pretty chill, but there's a lot happening in South Africa. The GNU's about to fight again. It's like two married people, but we understand. Utsile and Nkadimeng, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm good because we have this guest. I'm such a fan.
Felix says that like we haven't been friends for like 5-6 years.
Longer,
yeah.
So today, our guest, Tara, how are you doing today? I mean, deemed the future of South Africa by some in the political space, doing a lot in that space, writing, podcasting, very much down the alley of us. Your competitor, actually. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm good, guys. It's piss cold in Joburg. Can I say that?
Yes. Nah, it is. It's
because you brought the Cape Town weather with you.
No, I came to Joburg because there was a cold front coming to Cape Town, and I was like, actually, I don't want to be here when it rains. And that's why I came to Joburg, and now it's like 1 degree. So I'm just like, oh.
Common denominator, Tara. I'm just saying, like, you see on Cape Talk, and like, she brought that Cape Talk weather to Joburg. When she goes back, I promise you, it's going to be nice and warm in Joburg. Just saying, guys. Just saying.
I mean, the sun's out. It's still happy. We're still alive. I want to start this conversation at the big news, the cabinet reshuffle. The DA, the GNU. Personally, I can't lie. I'm tired. Like,
You're tired of them fighting?
Tired of them fighting. I'm tired of them going back and forth. But I think to set up the context, so Andrew Whitfield, because last time I said Liam Jacobson, we've made these mistakes before. Andrew Whitfield has recently been told that he is going to be leaving cabinet from President Cyril Ramaphosa after a trip to the United States, which was not sanctioned. And as it came out to be reported, the president actually had denied him going initially. So it was seen very much as a response to the presidency, but also seen as Cyril Ramaphosa responding to the wider GNU politics. Interestingly enough, a lot of people believe this is very self-interested and it's in alignment with the ANC and of course the NEC meeting. But let's kind of take it from its start. Do you think this cabinet reshuffle is going to be a big fight for the GNU? And do you think there needs to be more ministers that need to change?
Yes and no. I think there's a lot of presumption about why Andrew Whitfield, why now. In my personal opinion, I think that Cyril Ramaphosa wanted to punish the DA for how they'd acted over the budget saga. This is not about the US. And we see a lot of semantics when it comes to like travel and permissions and rules and regulations. I mean, the DA MP's trips to Israel was also a really good example of this. The DA like to come out to say, they went in their personal capacity when they were facing backlash, when in fact the DA knew about the chip. Cyril Ramaphosa knew about Andrew Whitfield's chip. He did. Now he's coming out to saying, actually he barred Andrew Whitfield from going. That's not the truth. It is a semantics issue because he needed a reason to have a head roll. And I think Andrew Whitfield was it's not that Andrew Whitfield had done anything wrong. The DA has come out to say it is about the National Lotteries Commission. It is because Andrew Whitfield was a brick in the road when they wanted a free-flowing open river to let corruption go through. Yes and no. I think Andrew Whitfield was an easy target. I don't think that the ANC actually predicted the DA's reaction to this. When you look at who the kind of they could have never gotten rid of a minister because that would have instantly signaled that the DA was going to leave the GNU. And when it came to the deputy ministers, when you look at the kind of options, they were never going to get rid of Ashwa. When you look at the other ministries, they needed something that was important but not too important, and Andrew Whitfield just happened to be the head on the chopping block. Is the DA going to leave the GNU? I think it's a strong consideration. I think now more than ever, especially when looking at the budget saga, they're thinking about it now, not because, and I think a lot of people will say, oh, if they do leave, it's because of positions. I don't think that it's because of positions. I think it's because the DA can no longer take a principled stance anywhere else. When you look at the budget saga, they had the court case in the Western Cape High Court's ruling to back them up to say, actually, what we did in delaying this budget was factual and it was correct. What are they going to do now? Like, if they decide to stay, I mean, they've given the ANC 48 hours. By the time this podcast episode airs, I guess we'll know the truth as the public. But they've given the ANC 48 hours. 48 hours to do what? An ultimatum to do what? They've threatened to leave the GNU multiple times. They could call a motion of no confidence. That's not really going to go anywhere. They could take this to the public protector. Like, there are many avenues in which the DA could explore, but to do that while simultaneously still staying in the GNU, the public wouldn't take them seriously.
But I think one of the things that many people looking at this coalition would be asking themselves is, one, already the DA is disproportionately represented in the Government of National Unity. They are underrepresented as a proportion of what is put in the initial statement of intent. And so at the moment, those looking at this relationship right now say probably the thing that would break the camel's back would be if President Ramaphosa replaced Andrew Whitfield with a deputy minister from another GNU member party or the ANC. Now, the premise on which I'm asking this question is that the ANC didn't want to give them trade and industry to begin with. That was like a huge fight in the initial composition of the cabinet. What is the likelihood that you see President Ramaphosa saying, no, maybe this is my chance to cut them out?
This is a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. I don't think anyone expected John Steenhuisen to get up yesterday when they were talking about the division of revenue and say what he had said. Like, I don't think the president saw that. And when you look in, and this is why I've maintained from the beginning, there is no logical way in which you can be both a minister in the cabinet and the leader of the political party. Because now the president's calling John to say, you know what, Andrew Whitfield's going to go. And John's saying, no, you can't do that. But what, you're telling your boss, actually, no, don't fire my colleague who is actually my subordinate. Like, it makes absolutely no sense. And this is why the DA does not hold negotiating power and can't take a principled stance, because what are they going to be left with? They also don't want to leave because going to opposition will be so bad for the DA in a way that we've seen the opposition politics change into what we see now as populism, and the style of opposition politics is vastly different from the 6 administrations, very like technocratic DA. They were calling for motions of no confidence all the time. They were very sticklers for the rules. That is not what MK and the EFF currently do. And the DA would struggle in opposition. The GNU will continue. It will go into a coalition. Action SA and Build in South Africa will most likely join, and they will fold the GNU seats elsewhere. And that will also be so unstable for the country, because then we're going to be sitting in like a direct one singular party will be kingmakers forever for the continuation of the 7th administration, and the DA will lose out. I think it's just, I don't understand, and my big question is why now? I mean, things have been good for a good 2-3 weeks. The fiscal framework was only voted on like a month ago. And now all of a sudden, and I do think this is the president's way of trying to exercise his power and to say, actually put the DA in their place. I don't think that the president presumed this large scale backlash, because specifically it's Andrew Whitfield, and specifically his a deputy minister of a department that the DA has been doing some groundwork in, but it's not one of their major talking points or media points. And do I think the DA will leave? I think it's a strong consideration. I think FedEx is currently very split, because also the idea is what do you do with everyone who the DA has now deployed to government? You have so many staffers, political appointees left, right, and center, who are going to lose their jobs. How are they going to translate this going into local government? How is that going to affect their campaign strategy? There's many different scenarios that are playing out, but I do think it's going to come down. The president could, as a compromise, replace the current position with another DA minister. I don't think that the DA will likely go for that. But what does the president do? He's not going to fire those other 3 ministers. He's not going to internally turn on the party, and he is rightfully exercising his role as the president. But if the DA feels that that is unfair, they should leave. And I think that is going to be a big consideration for them now.
Mayor Dada Morero recently just survived a vote of no confidence. And I guess where I'd be interested to hear what you guys think is, particularly looking at how we are engaging the GNU politics. If the DA does leave, what does that mean for local elections? Because, of course, Helen Zille is considering mayoralship. And in Johannesburg, where the second biggest party is likely to be the ANC by polling data, I don't see a world where the DA and the ANC break up now and then come together again in local elections. And so I'm curious to see what you guys think about that relationship going forward. Now, of course, there's an argument to be said that it's coalition governments, like they're going to break up, they're going to make up, and that's essentially what we're going to live with for the rest of our lives, essentially. But on the one end, I would say that if we're already hearing calls within the ANC to denounce the DA as a partner entirely, what does this mean moving forward for any potential relationship in future?
I think, look, Dada survived that motion of no confidence. I think it was very touch and go because we didn't know how Action SA was going to vote up until the last minute. And I think Action SA's decision to abstain was absolutely ridiculous. Like, if you were going to take a stand with your chest. Don't abstain from the vote. They didn't want, the reason they abstained is because they didn't want to vote for the DA. And I think this whole Action SA DA feud, it's absolutely pointless. Like, it just shows that they're being complete and utter toddlers in the political arena instead of doing what is in the best interest of the residents of the city of Joburg, because Dada Moreira is a terrible mayor. Like, he is a terrible mayor, and all political parties agree with that sentiment. But the thing is, they don't want another political party's candidate to be the next mayor. They're all looking for their own viability instead of looking at what is best for the residents. And this is not a campaign to say that, oh, I think the next mayor of Joburg should be someone from the DA. But the next mayor of Joburg should be someone who is going to do what is best for the citizens and for the residents of Joburg, rather. And I just don't think that that is Dada. And actually, say abstaining, it's like an absolute joke. But when you look at the fluidity of coalitions, I mean, the reason he survived was because of the PA-EFF axis. And the EFF cannot stand the ANC nationally. If they had to go to a vote of no confidence, the EFF, as stated, they would in fact vote with the DA to have Cyril Ramaphosa ousted and then abstain when it is coming time to elect the president. But you look at the fluidity, and I don't think that even at a national level, if the GNU in its current state had to fall, that would disbar coalitions happening at a local level. When you look at the PNU in KZN, rather, I think that there is a lot of fluidity.
But one would analyze Action SA's decision, because I heard a little bit about the horse trading that is happening behind the scenes. The ANC saying, listen, you vote against him to remove him.
Yeah.
We not only remove your speaker, but we remove your mayor and Tshwane. You vote to abstain, we'll remove your speaker, but your mayor and Tshwane is safe.
Yeah.
Wouldn't Action SA's decision be more strategic? Because I'm looking at it, Nasipi Moya is doing well. They're polling well in Tshwane. I'm thinking Action SA is maybe deciding Joburg's maybe a lost cause now. Let's focus our energies on the city of Tshwane.
But there is no guarantee that Nasipi Moya will come back, come local government. She is there right now as a placeholder. And whether or not Action SA would like to agree that, and look, they've put a lot of political backing and campaigning behind her current mayorship in Tshwane, and she has done good things. But Action SA also held the deputy mayorship in the coalition with the DA in the city of Tshwane. So it wasn't like that they were so far out of the realm of governing. They'd held the deputy mayorship, and they had been in a coalition with the DA for a long time. The falling apart of the coalition in Tshwane was because of the fallout of the Moonshot Pact and what had happened in national elections, in which Action SA felt like they needed to gain something back from the DA. It wasn't because of anything other. Like, I don't think that you could compare what had happened in the city of Tshwane and the governorship of the mayor there to what is currently happening in the city of Joburg. I mean, for all the flaws of Cilliers Brown, Kia really made an effort to turn Tshwane around. And what we see Nasipi Moya doing is just a continuation of that from her role from deputy mayor to current mayor. I think Action SA choosing to abstaining, it's a personal political choice. It is because they don't like the DA. That is ultimately what it comes down to, is that, and this is also the DA has an uncanny likability problem. They do not have, they do. No one likes the DA.
Yeah, that's true. True.
No one in the political arena likes the DA, within the exception of the Freedom Front Plus, who is like their forever ally. The DA has no one else, and that is a problem because in coalition politics, you need allies. And you need to ask yourself a question. Why would these small political parties who have campaigned against the ANC, who have set themselves up because they are so disillusioned with the establishment, they want to tell voters we have an alternative, time and time again, vote with the ANC, even when on a policy perspective, they're more closely aligned with the DA because they can't stand them. And that is the problem, is that the DA, as much as they would like to say, we don't need these smaller parties. What are we looking at? Like 0.1%, 1.2%. You need them. You need them if you ever want to hold some kind of power, because now the ANC is saying you can be with us and you can take what we're giving you. Alternatively, if not, we'll go get our votes somewhere else. And that is the DA's problem, because they're stuck in that governing realm, but they also can't go back to opposition. They would get eaten alive. Like, they would become irrelevant. Look, DA voters will always vote DA. And that is something that is a standard. The DA will always exist within a 18 to 22% margin. I believe that the DA's ultimate cap is 25. I don't see them ever getting more than 25% of the electorate. But they will always exist in that margin because people will always vote for the DA, but they need to think of a long-term strategy because now they have a foot in the governance door. How are you going to grow that? Because you can't be in opposition forever.
I think that it's interesting now that as the DA's moved into governance, they've almost been assimilated with the institution and they're unable to separate themselves from the ANC in many ways because now you're a part of the government which is failing. And at the same time, they're unable to clearly identify how they're going to be unique in this new political space because now they're trying to be opposition within government and it's become very apparent. I think where I do want to put this is that when we then look at the ANC and how the DA is playing into the ANC, there's a major concern around this NEC meeting, right? Because it's been delayed a couple of times now. And it was planned for 3 months ago and we still haven't seen anything. No one really knows whether or not it's going to take place. And I guess the concern there is that do we think that both parties are essentially holding on and defending each other without actively saying it? Because oddly enough, Cyril Ramaphosa very much so recognizes the value in the DA and the fact that if he has the DA on his side, he'll always survive a vote of no confidence. And I find it hard to believe they'll vote out Cyril? I still think the white populace in South Africa will still hold a very strong belief that Cyril is the best candidacy that we have at the moment. And similarly, within the DA, I think it's almost been impossible to invoke change from the outside. That's a lot of what state capture exposed to us. Yeah.
I think for me, and this is why I'm so puzzled by Cyril's decision, especially now, because Cyril Ramaphosa wanted the DA. I think that the ANC, and specifically when you look at the internal leadership of the ANC, I mean, Fikile Mbalula specifically, they try and push this narrative that, we're just with the DA because, they almost act like they're forced to be there. No, they're not. If the ANC wanted the DA gone, the DA would have been gone already.
Yeah.
As by budget 1.0. When they stood up and they said, this budget is not happening today. If the ANC wanted the DA gone, if the ANC wanted to be in a coalition with the EFF, with MK, that would have happened. The ANC had all the cards on the table when the election happened and they actively pursued and chose the DA because they don't want to be in a 13-party coalition where some 0.1% party has the deciding of whether or not the government's going to fall today or tomorrow. It is easier to deal with the DA than with 13 parties at tandem all at once. So I'm so puzzled by the decision, and I think that there has to be some greater reasoning behind the firing of Andrew Whitfield and some greater political move at play, whether that is coming from directly, internally, politically from the ANC, communicated to the president to say, we actually need to show the DA what is going to happen. But I think what the DA had done yesterday is really going to strike a chord with South African voters because they could have brought the government to a standstill. So yesterday, there wasn't a plenary when John Steenhuisen had given that speech. He gave that during his allocated time on the debate for the division of revenue, which the budget is broken up into 3 bills. Well, a framework and 2 bills. So the fiscal framework, which outlines all spending, division of revenue, that is how money is allocated to the various levels of government, and then appropriations, which is next week, which is how money is allocated to the various government departments. If the DA had to vote no yesterday because they had the EFF and MK who had also voted no on the division of revenue, the government could have come to a standstill. The government, if they vote no on appropriations, the government comes to a standstill. We would go into what is probably the closest symbolism to what we see a government shutdown in America, because we would only be able to allocate 10% of the budget to all government spending, and there is no department salary bill that is 10%. And so they could have brought the government to a standstill, and they didn't do that. They chose what was in the best interest of the South African people, even if that wasn't in the best interest politically. Because if the DA had to stop the division of revenue from passing yesterday, Cyril Ramaphosa would have been in a worse off decision than he is now, because now he still has 48 hours to respond. He's not going to give them the response that they want. And I think politically, while in the best interest of South Africans, it was a very dangerous move, because while their decision is going to resonate with DA voters and it is going to keep their base strong, the people on the outside world who are on the outskirts of the DA's voter base, they don't know the division of revenue was being voted on yesterday. They don't even know how the government allocates the money into the departments. So it isn't also going to help the DA expand beyond their voter base. I think that they would have made more of a stir had the division of revenue stopped, because it would have been like, the peasant needs to respond now. And I think that would have been more of a tactical power move on behalf of the DA, even if it would have caused a lot of instability in the country. But I think that they could have easily made the media spin to say, we didn't put the country in this position, the ANC did. Because the ANC also acts like they have a majority in government. That's also something that is so puzzling to me, is we can look at the DA and we can criticize them for a lot of the decisions that they've made from the inception of the GNU, but the ANC acts like they have the majority and they can just do what they want, go and find votes outside of the GNU. They can really just use the DA to prop them up as and when they feel like. And I think they also need to reckon with themselves that if the DA does leave the GNU, it is also going to greatly hurt them, because at Action SA or Build South Africa decide, you know what, actually we're not going to vote on this bill, this piece of legislation isn't going to pass, what is the ANC going to do then?
Yeah. I think looking more specifically at the DA, I'm curious as to what you guys think the response will be, because at this point, they almost have ran out of everything. They've threatened to leave government more than once. They've sued the government more than once.
Sued themselves. Sorry, I had to point that out. They sued themselves.
And it seems like now everyone's kind of at the brink. Like there is nothing else that you can do. For Cyril, this was a very, very objective move, which was to say, actually, we're defining the line. For the DA, John speaking up was also them saying we're defining the line. But now we're literally at the point of, you must either end this thing or you must stop complaining. Like there isn't a way forward. And from that standpoint, I think my concern always grows that we've gotten to a point where politics has become about brinkmanship. It's become about how far can we push you until you react badly, or how far can we push you until the country reacts poorly. And I don't necessarily see the way forward for both of these entities, because what everyone keeps citing is the fact that many ANC members came out after the budget and said you can't be in parliament if you don't support the budget. And of course the ANC never followed through, which is why a lot of people believe this is retaliation. But when we look at both of their strategies moving forward, yes, I understand that the ANC very much so, and potentially Cyril, is dealing with both internal party pressure and external support. But from the DA standpoint, there isn't really much pressure beyond yourselves. Like, it seems like it's a lot more internally generated, and it doesn't seem like their supporter base is necessarily arguing that they ought leave. But even if we look more specifically at the things that John Steenhuisen spoke about, he was recently in the Oval Office attesting to the fact that he wanted to keep the EFF and the MK out of government. So it's very weird how this conversation is being framed, because it's almost like everyone's arguing that we're forced to be here, but we're not forced to be here. And when it suits them, they kind of change. So do you guys actually believe holistically that the ANC DA debacles are going to continue? Or do you actually think at some point we're going to realize it's a lot more drama that's being created around us?
I think, and I can say this with almost absolute certainty, I could eat my words later, the EFF or MK is not going to enter government. There is no realistic way in which the ANC is ever going, at least under the CR faction currently now, that MK will ever come back into government. And if the ANC wanted the EFF, they would have picked the EFF. And look at the EFF's current leadership, their current political instability internally, it's not going to be the EFF. If the DA has to leave government, they will enter a 13-party coalition. If Action SA or Build South Africa chooses not to enter the government, it depends whether or not the Freedom Front Plus would leave. If the Freedom Front Plus does leave with the DA, they will just govern in a minority and get votes where needed to pass certain pieces of legislation. I think if push comes to shove and the DA does not get an adequate response from the ANC, Cyril's not firing those 3 ministers. That is absolutely not going to happen. And I think the DA knows that. They just said that because they wanted to invoke a strong response. But if Cyril Ramaphosa doesn't do something that the DA deems as satisfactory, they will leave. And I'm always certain that they will leave if that is the situation. What they deem as satisfactory, I don't know. They could shift Andrew Whitfield somewhere else and put him in another and like just play it off as a larger cabinet reshuffle. They could reprimand Andrew Whitfield and maybe reinstate him. But I don't think that if the DA does not get a satisfactory response, I don't think that leaving is completely off of the cards like it was when it came to budget or Bella or NHI or land expropriation, or I'm trying to recount every other time to leave the GNU. So I think this is about the ANC asserting their dominance, especially as, we're close to entering election season for local government. I think that the ANC wants to posture themselves in a manner in which they say, hey, we're still the largest party in the country. We might not have a ruling majority, but we still are the largest party, and we cannot have the DA almost dictate to us what is happening. But I've maintained this from the beginning. The DA has undercut themselves from the inception of the GNU. The fact that they had such a limited ministries, like I maintain that the current cabinet split up should have been proportional to party percentage representation.
Yeah.
And when you look at the fact that they had only have 6 ministers, like it's laughable. John Steenhuisen should have never become a minister. I think that is also largely why the DA currently faces themselves in this position, because time and time again, when you come to policy issues, when you come to the budget, and even now with the reshuffle, you cannot tell your boss, hey, don't fire my colleague who is also my employee. Like, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I'm just going to pop in and say, you highlighted something very important, that John Steenhuisen showed his hand when he was in the Oval, because he made the convincing case that he tells his constituents and that the FedEx tells itself. And that is that fundamentally we need to be in this government to keep them out. And you hear that time and time again as their justification for going in. Now, to a certain point, if you are cognizant of the fact that you are keeping out something that you have yourself labeled a threat to South African democracy, the economy, and maybe the sovereignty of the state, judging by how international actors at the moment deal with these specific people you're keeping out. If the DA walks away, yes, they can say the ANC prompted it, but at the end of the day, I think they will have to eat the ramifications of walking away, because fundamentally, the ANC can say, yes, we did this, but we didn't push you. You left of your own accord. And that becomes a separate political battle that I don't think the DA is yet ready to have with the ANC.
I think for me, I cannot, in a similar way that I cannot understand Cyril Ramaphosa's rationale for making this decision, I cannot, in this year of the GNU, rationalize any leadership decision that John Steenhuisen has made.
It's a piss poor leader.
I have to agree. You said it, not me, because I get labeled a DA hater all the time. But I do not understand. There are so many decisions. Like, firstly, even if I need to set aside John becoming a minister and trying to be leader of the DA, when you look at Roman Kabinak's appointment, that was also another thing. I'm just like, and then not only Roman Kabinak's appointment, Roman Kabinak's subsequent firing over what seemed as a media move to appeal to the masses, when actually it didn't appeal to the DA voter base at all. The DA voter base does not care about Roman Kabinak, but Roman Kabinak, what he had previously said about the ANC government, his personal political views, that was also largely talked about within internal ANC politics. They did not like Roman Kabinak, and a lot of John Steenhuisen's appointments, they did not like what was being done during the budget saga when the DA took the ANC to court. They did not like what Dean McPherson had done by getting people in his department to sign year-long contracts, even though they had just started in preparation for exiting the government. There are just so many instances, like the DA's response to NHI to Bella. Like, there are so many things internally that the ANC is like, this is not how we govern, and this is not how we do things. And there are many discrepancies in the way in which the ANC government governs, and the ANC does not have a flawless record, and I'm not trying to state that. But there was not an internal discussion, I think, prior to the inception of the GNU. How are we going to work this out? I mean, the statement of intent is worth less than the piece of paper that it is printed on. Like, it means absolutely nothing. No one has followed it. No one has abided by it. And you see this time and time again, is that the manner in which the DA, because politics is a game, and the way that the DA plays politics and the way that the ANC plays politics are two completely different things.
Yeah.
And that is why that they're constantly clashing heads. And I think the manner in which Cyril Ramaphosa, you can say what you want about the ANC's electoral capabilities in 2024. Cyril is a master negotiator. He has played every single step of the way. Like, it's a masterclass in how to operate when you have lost and fallen from grace. And I think, like, when you compare that to how John Steenhuisen has handled all these, like, coalitions time and time again, all they do is run to the media and say the GNU is going to fall apart. No one believes those media headlines anymore because they've threatened to leave the GNU multiple times. So if you're going to do it, like Action is, say, abstaining from the vote, if you're going to do it with your chest.
Yeah. I'd be curious to hear if you guys think this will be the final nail in the coffin for John Steenhuisen, because Musi Maimane left on a similar call. Well, not similar, right? He had lost the vote, or he'd lost like 1 million votes. The DA decreased like 1% to 2%. And it was seen as a bad electoral vote. I'd be interested to hear, do you guys think them leaving the GNU, the fall's going to actually fall on John? Because yes, we all understand Helen Zille very much from the back is kind of leading the call.
She's the puppet master.
Yeah.
But the person who's been the face of the GNU for the DA has been John. And so it failing would signify a massive failure, one, in his party, but also would signify a massive failure for him as a leader. Because in some ways it would show that you've been outmaneuvered by the ANC, and you've gotten to the point where, beyond being outmaneuvered, you've been angered to the point of leaving. Because the ANC's not going to force them out. We all know this. They'll keep dragging them along until the end. So when we look at what's happening in potentially political changes, both within 2027 and 2026, do we think this is actually the turn of a new face, the turn of new coalition politics that's happening in South Africa?
I think, regardless of whether or not the DA stays or the DA leaves, this is going to negatively affect John Steenhuisen. You cannot have a leader who time and time again threatens to leave a coalition and expect the voters to react well. Because you also have to remember that the DA's elective conference, which is going to happen in April of 2026, that is not decided by the public. That is decided internally by the DA. And internally in the DA, people are not happy with John Steenhuisen. And just last week, articles had come out where John said, what he was hoping to run for a third term, he really wants to come back. That's not going to happen. John Steenhuisen, John Steenhuisen will not be the leader of the DA come April 2026. I can almost be 1,000% certain on that. It will be Jordan Lewis. I've said this time and time again. And it's not even because I am like a cheerleader for Jordan Lewis. I think I have a lot of internal disagreements, specifically about policy decisions and decisions he has made in the city of Cape Town as a Cape Townian myself. But Jordan Lewis will be the next leader of the DA. John Steenhuisen, and we've seen this, he just does not have the leadership capabilities and the backbone to be able to lead the DA in a decisive manner. Like, John cannot make a decisive decision. And to me, we've seen this time and time again. We talk about Helen Zille is actually running the party. She's the puppet master. She is really coordinating everything. And to a certain extent, I think that will always be true. As long as Helen Zille is alive, she will, even when she is no longer FedEx chair, she will still become like a Tony Leon type figure to the DA. She will still have her hand internally. But the fact that we saw this time again, she would come out and say, it's not a GNU, it's a coalition. When the federal leader of the party is like, it's a GNU, there's no talking, there's such a, I wouldn't be surprised if John and Helen have internal disputes it's not talked about largely in the media, but I would not be shocked if that there was a lot of internal disagreement between them. I just don't think John is going to come back. I don't think John has been a good leader. And even electorally, we often talk about, the DA did better. But when you look at vote percentage, yes, all political parties are decreased in votes. But the fact that the DA could not move the needle from going from Mmusi Maimane to John Steenhuisen, when they had really positioned themselves in the grand fall of the ANC, that they were going to rescue South Africa, they rescued no one.
I think fundamentally it comes down to the DA needing to be strategic looking at 2029. So they're going to have the elective conference April 26th. That's going to be an opportunity for them to select a federal leader that can actually that can lead them into the local government elections. So they need someone that is, one, likable, two, that has experience, and three, someone that changes the way the Democratic Alliance feels to the South African populace and the public. Because say what you want about John Steenhuisen, he's tired. Not he himself is tired. Him as a figure politically, he's a tired figure. People know what they're getting. People have seen it, and people don't like it. White people don't like John Steenhuisen. They vote for the DA. They don't vote for him as a leader. And this is happening at a time where the Patriotic Alliance is eating and chipping away at their votes. White votes, specifically if you're looking at the Mossel Bay by-election that happened. I know Khumo doesn't like looking at by-election results. I look at by-election results as indicators. That Mossel Bay by-election is a strong indicator that the Patriotic Alliance is not just popular amongst colored people, but it is chipping away at the Democratic Alliance's support in those specific areas that are predominantly white. And so I think for the DA, now is a transitional moment. It's a transitional moment where you're no longer playing solely an opposition game. You have to be in leadership, you have to be in government, and you're going to need a leader that is more decisive and that can rebrand the party's image. John has not tried to reframe or rebrand the DA's image. The DA has remained the same since Mmusi and to an extent since Helen. And Jordan Lewis, for me, I think he's the best contender for that. He's by far in the leadership of the Democratic Alliance, outside of those in cabinet. He's one of the more better known DA leaders. He's led City of Cape Town strong. I'll say if you live in the green leafy suburbs, He's still going to be DA. He's not going to be perfect. He's still going to be a DA candidate. But he changes the party, changes the image of the party. And I'll end with this. He won't even need to go into cabinet. Just to hop on to Tara's point, I think it was a strategically bad decision for John to go and be a cabinet minister, for agriculture no less. What does John know about farming? But It wouldn't be new because Helen Zille was mayor of Cape Town whilst she was leader of the Democratic Alliance and then became premier of the Western Cape. If I were Jordan Hill-Lewis, I'd do the same thing. I just think he changes the party in a way that it lets them choose a side and run on it versus John, who's trying to appeal to moderate, slightly far-right, conservative, fringe. You can't fix both. You need to let go of one to the PA and the VF and just try congregate the other.
I think whether we would like to admit it or not, South African politics is about personality. Personality wins you votes. And I'm asked this, you know, ask this question to people who work in the DA. What does John Henry Steenhuisen stand for? Could anyone tell me? And that is a genuine question. What does John Steenhuisen stand for? Like for 5 marks, can anyone tell me? And that is the problem, is that if you were to ask what does John stand for, what has John really done in his tenure as leader, no one could give you an answer. And that's why he, in the grand scheme of things, guys, he is a transitional leader. He is Kgalema Motlanthe. He's never going to be the president. It was never going to be something in terms of a long-term vision and goal. And I think Jordan Hill-Lewis has the ability to almost capture the imagination of the DA voter base and to consolidate it in a way that we haven't seen it before. Because John Steenhuisen, I maintain this time and time again, John Steenhuisen was a really good chief whip. I mean, you see that emulated a lot in the way George Michaelikis tries to run the caucus now in Parliament. But John Steenhuisen, amazing chief whip. He was really a technocrat, a stickler for the rules. He was really pivotal to Musi's caucus in his tenure as DA leader. But being a technocrat and being a good chief whip and having those skills and characteristics does not translate onto a federal leader. It does not translate onto a minister. And you also need to be real with yourself and be like, you know what, these are my strengths and these are my weaknesses, and not be self-grandizing in a manner to think that you could do it all. Like, you get MPs who are really good ministers, you get ministers who are terrible MPs, people who do really well as spokespeople who actually don't do well in the executive. Like, there's a lot of fluidity in politics, and just because you're a politician doesn't mean that you can be good at governing. And I mean, even that, I wouldn't even say that John Steenhuisen is a good politician.
Steenhuisen is basically the Floyd Shivambu of the DA.
He is. That is such a good example. In a manner in which Floyd Shivambu thinks now that he can start his own political party and people would vote for him, John Steenhuisen is nothing without the machinery of the DA. I think you could say what you would like about Musi Memani and Herman Mashaba and Zungezo Zibi, but the fact that they could go out on their own, not have big political party machinery behind them, and still be able to return to Parliament, I think it says something about who they are as leaders. If John Steenhuisen had to go out tomorrow and start a political party, that man wouldn't even get 10,000 votes.
Here today, come tomorrow.
I mean, I don't disagree with what you guys are saying about Jordan Hill-Lewis. I think I recognize a lot of the strong sets that he has, the skill set that he has. The only thing that I would be arguing is that strategically, when you look at where South Africa is, but also when you look at what the next 4 years are going to be with the build up to the next national election, I don't see the value in him tarnishing his name early. Because it's going to be a new face of politicians come 2029, at least from what we're hearing. The ANC's bench is practically empty. The DA is going to have new leadership by what we're hearing, unless, John Steenhuisen.
You're all in to discuss that.
And we don't know what's going to happen with the MK. It's musical chairs. It's always shifting. We don't know where we will be at that point. So we've got 3 big parties that are likely going to have new faces. I don't see the value in bringing in a new face now.
But Jordan isn't a new face. I mean, when you look at his trajectory in politics, Jordan Hill-Lewis isn't even 40 yet. Yeah. And what he has been able to do in such a short period of time, and it is truly a masterclass in political maneuvering in post-democratic South Africa. I do think in 10, 20 years, we are going to be talking about Jordan Hill-Lewis's trajectory in the way we talk about Cyril Ramaphosa's, and the way in which he has been able to just move and expand and make himself invaluable to the DA, that if Jordan Hill-Lewis had to leave the DA tomorrow, they would struggle. Not just in terms of the caucus internally in the Western Cape, but also looking at political party dynamics. Because despite only being the mayor, Jordan Hill-Lewis, I can almost attest, has been the person that people call for advice, has been someone who has really helped shape and structure the DA. When you look, he started DASO, that was a big part of his positioning at the DA. He was Zilla's chief of staff. Like, the way he's been in parliament, he's now in local government. I'm also pretty sure that he will not go back to the National Assembly. He will become the new Premier of the Western Cape. Like, the political maneuvering Jordan Lewis has been able to do in such a short period of time, and the manner in which he has done it, that Jordan Lewis also has no scandals. Like, if you think about this, like, people have so much to say about John Steenhuisen because he's given us a lot to talk about. Like, not to talk about his personal life, but I mean, why do we think Action SA exists? Like, we all remember what happened in 2014. So there are things like that where it's like John Steenhuisen has a lot of baggage attached to him. And I do think that a fresh new start for the DA will help them, especially if they are going to leave government. Because I see no way in which John Steenhuisen could stay the leader of the DA if they leave the GNU. And I think even if he had to put himself forward for re-election in 2026, I think that there is a gentleman's agreement between him and Jordan that if John decides to down, Jordan won't. But I think even if they had to go head-to-head, Jordan would beat him.
Yeah.
Oof. Okay, quick one in closing because we're running out of time. Floyd Shivambu's party, are we a believer? Let's go around the room.
No, this thing is not going anywhere. It's a here today, gone tomorrow exercise. Literally, it is because nobody starts a party on the basis of consultations.
Yeah.
You do it with a base of support. Floyd Shivambu doesn't have a base of support because he's never been the head figure of a party. He's always been a behind-the-scenes operator. It's why Jacob Zuma and the MK party recruited him. It's what Julius Malema loved about him. That's why Juju was never threatened by him within his own party that Floyd himself helped create. So if you could not carve out your own base of support that could win your mass election as the deputy leader of by far what was the most successful modern populist party in South African politics, the EFF, and then you go to the second most populist party, the MKP, you starting your own party is just an exercise in wasting money, wasting time. Floyd Shivambu should have never left the EFF. I think it was a strategically bad decision.
Floyd has solidified his position as one of South Africa's many political prostitutes to go from the ANC to the EFF to now MK to now his own political party. Like, you must question to yourself the rationale behind. And this is why I'm like, I just don't understand how these decisions are getting made because where's Floyd going to get the money? Okay,
True.
The funders that he would get for his
White
new
monopoly capital.
He's never going to get the money from White Monopoly Capital, guys. Like, he has basically written so many people off the funders list. Where is he going to get support from? You can't out EFF the EFF. You can't out MK the MK. What policy points is he going to campaign on? And like, I just think him calling the EFF a cult, to me, just signified that I think Floyd has completely lost the plot because you were the architect of the cult. Like, when he joined MK, he said, guys, I was there. I wrote the EFF constitution. I was a part of its inception. Now you're coming out and you're saying it was a cult.
Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you guys for this conversation. This was fun. We need to do this more often.
We do.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone out there, Born Free listeners, please subscribe, please share. And as always, this has been Born Free. We hope you've enjoyed today's conversation. And we're going to keep bringing it. Big hitters coming soon, but more will be said. Yeah, peace out. Deuces.